The kitchen smelled of roast chicken and thyme, a comforting smell in a house that had never really been mine. My name is Sophia Evans. I'm 36, and I've always been the organized one, the silent mediator, the problem solver everyone relied on but never thanked. My husband Ethan was quietly at my side, the kind of man who could read my mood with a glance and never argue about the small annoyances that came with family chaos. It was Sunday lunch, the same as it had been every holiday. My parents were bustling in and out of the kitchen. My younger sister Tessa sat at the table with her husband Dan, and my Uncle Ron was hovering near the dessert tray, cracking jokes no one really heard. My kids, Ben, 9, and Talia, 7, were chasing the dog in paper crowns. Ethan and I had just returned from hanging a few decorations when my brother, Nick, decided it was the perfect moment to perform. He clinked a spoon against his glass, eyes sweeping the room theatrically. "Speech," he announced. We all turned. Some of the adults froze mid-chew. My heart sank. "These are my sister's kids," Nick said, gesturing broadly toward Ben and Talia. "No medals, no talent, just like their mom." A few nervous laughs escaped. Someone snorted. My father said Nick, softly, almost amused, like he was giving a warning that no one could hear properly. Ethan's hand found mine, squeezing briefly. I didn't move. Nick's grin widened as he pointed at his son, Luca, practicing a TikTok dance near the couch. Now that's what success looks like. Heat burned behind my ears. I lifted my glass slowly, calmly, flatly. "Cheers," I said. "This is the last time any of you will see us." The laughter died so quickly, it left a vacuum in the room. My mother blinked at me as though I'd spoken a foreign language. Nick smirked, puffed his chest, clearly thinking I was bluffing. I took my kids' hands, tugged them gently, and left. Outside, the cold air hit my face, and the city felt strangely quiet. Fireworks popped somewhere in the distance. "Did we do something wrong?" Ben asked, voice small. "No," I said. "We're done being someone's joke." Back home, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, still in his jacket, watching me pace. "What now?" he asked quietly. "Now," I said, "we clean house." I didn't check my phone that night. I didn't want to see Nick's message waiting in the family chat, the one I knew would turn my anger into guilt. I just stood in the dim kitchen, smelling roast chicken lingering on my clothes, listening to the quiet hum of the city and to my own pulse. Years of this had built up quietly, a slow pressure that no one acknowledged. I became the reliable one by accident. After high school, I skipped college and threw myself into work, apprenticing under a cranky mechanic who taught me torque specs, how to say no without apology, and how to calculate responsibility versus obligation. I saved, bought my own failing two-bay garage, painted the front bright, and hung my name, Evans Auto. Meanwhile, Nick collected jobs the way I collected grease-stained rags, brief, messy, and never lasting. Personal trainer, real estate assistant, marketing consultant for a startup that existed only on sweatshirts. He always landed softly enough to try again. Mom would shrug. "He'll figure it out. Sophia, maybe you can help?" And I would, over and over, because the tug behind my ribs, the one that made me agree half asleep to things I didn't want to, was stronger than the irritation. By the time Luca was born, it escalated. Tuition, summer camp, co-signed loans, temporary phones, extra car payments. I quietly said yes to all of it, mostly quietly. Ethan didn't nag. He just watched the numbers and waited for me to explode. I learned how to say yes in my head, yes in a spreadsheet, yes in a voice that never carried to anyone else. The family chat was its own ecosystem. My parents sent memes. Nick sent videos of Luca with 3 medals from weekend tournaments. My kids' achievements were just background noise. And yet you notice these things. You notice the tug in your chest when your son watches threads fly by and you care despite yourself. 2 weeks before New Year's, Nick sent a long message. "Good news. Luca got into Eastfield Prep's middle school program. Tuition's a stretch, but we're all about investing in the future, right? Can we sit down and talk numbers? You always said you'd be there for him." I read it twice. "You always said." Years ago, half asleep at a christening, champagne in hand, I'd told my mother, "Of course I'll help with Luca." I hadn't meant tuition. I'd meant buying onesies, but words have power, and apparently, so does family expectation. At the shop, I replaced a timing belt with my jaw tight. Ethan appeared in the bay doorway, hair tied back, clipboard in hand. Your brother called here, he said. He wants to know if the school should send the invoice straight to your business account. I laughed, harsh and metallic. The business account is for keeping the lights on, Ethan. Tell him no. Before New Year's, I tried twice to call Nick. Twice I hung up. I knew exactly how it would go. Jokes, hedge, manipulation, Mom hopping on speaker like it was a referendum on my soul. No, not this time. I knew what I had to do. I let the anger sit exactly where it belonged, front and center. I scrubbed the shop floor, listing every favor, loan, and emergency I'd funded over the years. Co-signed Honda? Covered. Summer camp? Covered. Temporary phones? Covered. Each number, each receipt, made the emotion vanish. It became data, precise, undeniable. At 1 a.m., Ethan and I finished. The last line, further credit suspended. Sunday at 5 p.m., we walked into my parents' house. I brought a printed packet. Ethan carried a folder. Kids stayed home. Mom started immediately, but I raised a hand. I'll start. Nick, sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, said, "Make it quick. The game's on." "This," I said, placing the packet on the coffee table, "is the last 10 years of me helping. Total at the end. Notes attached. Tonight, I'm saying no going forward." Mom frowned. Dad flipped pages like he expected a punchline. Nick smirked. "You made a brochure. That's adorable." I didn't flinch. Read page 3. The Honda you stopped paying. Page 5, Luca's 2022 camp. Page 6, the deposit you lost. Page 7, temporary phone line I'm still paying. Page 9, laptop borrowed and never returned. Dad cleared his throat. "Sophia." "Dad," I said, "you told me to smooth things over. This is me smoothing. Telling the truth out loud is all." Nick flipped a page, laughed. "So what? You want me to pay you back?" "No," I said. "I'm closing the account. No more money, no more cosigns. And if you insult my husband or kids again, you won't see us." Ethan spoke quietly but firmly. "Our kids are family too." Nick pointed at him. "Watch your tone." I laughed once. "No, watch yours." Nick's face flushed as I slid my phone across the table, mirroring the family chat and his messages on the TV. Everyone could see it now. Decade-long evidence of manipulation and expectation. "You still covering college, right?" Nick muttered as we left. I didn't answer. I closed the door behind us. For the first time, leaving the house didn't feel like retreat. It felt like claiming something back that had never been mine to give away in the first place. The next morning, the sunlight didn't feel like warmth. It felt like a challenge. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Nick's messages, missed calls, and a string of texts from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. Ethan stood behind me in the kitchen, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, steadying me. We had work to do. I opened a fresh notebook and started listing everything. Every loan, co-signed car, temporary phone line, summer camp payment, tuition deposit, laptop borrowed and never returned. Each line was a reminder not of generosity, but of manipulation. Ethan pulled out statements, invoices, and screenshots. Together, we turned years of emotional labor into hard numbers. The spreadsheet grew, sprawling across the kitchen table, a battlefield map of my patience. By midnight, we finished. The last line read, "Further credit suspended." It was official. It was real. I had done something I never thought I would. I had quantified my boundaries. Sunday arrived, 5 p.m. sharp. We walked into my parents' house, folder in hand, packet of every expense meticulously printed. The kids stayed home. They didn't need to witness this. Mom's voice started immediately. "Sophia, about New Year's." I raised my hand. "I'll start." Nick was sprawled on the couch, phone in hand. "Make it quick. Game's on." "This," I said, placing the packet on the coffee table, "is the last 10 years of me helping. Notes attached. Tonight, I'm saying no going forward." Mom frowned. Dad flipped through pages like he might find a joke hidden in there. Nick smirked. "You made a brochure. That's adorable." "Read page 3, I said, calm but precise. "The Honda you stopped paying. Page 5, Luca's 2022 camp. Page 6, the deposit you lost. Page 7, the temporary phone line I'm still paying. Page 9, the laptop you borrowed and never returned." Dad cleared his throat. "Sophia." "Dad," I said, meeting his eyes, "you told me to smooth things over. This is me smoothing. Telling the truth out loud is all. Nick leaned forward, a grin like a blade. So what? You want me to pay you back? No, I said. I'm closing the account. No more money, no more cosigns, no more just this once. And if you insult my husband or children again, you won't see us. Ethan, quiet until now, finally spoke. Our kids are family too. Nick's smirk faltered. Watch your tone, he spat. I laughed once, flat, unamused. No, watch yours. He lunged forward, attempting the same old tactic. Humiliation in front of our parents. You know why you're mad? He said, voice rising. Because Luca is better than your kids. Because you married plain and made plain kids, and you can't stand that mine shines. The word plain hit me like a slap. I felt Ethan's hand squeeze mine. My chest tightened, but something new bloomed underneath the anger. Clarity. I reached for my phone and mirrored the family chat on the TV. Nick's messages lit up the wall in bold letters. A decade of expectations and demands. Every attempt to manipulate and guilt me spelled out for all to see. You still covering college, right? He muttered to my back. I didn't answer. I didn't even turn. I closed the door behind us. For the first time, leaving didn't feel like defeat. It felt like taking ownership. In the days that followed, Nick tried every tactic he knew. Missed calls, angry voicemails, manipulative text, posts on social media painting himself as the wrong parent. Mom called, pleading. Sophia, please, we're family. Let's be reasonable. Reasonable meant paying and forgetting. That was the old pattern. I didn't answer. Ethan deleted the voicemails without listening. We didn't save them. The shop changed immediately. Without the constant emergency withdrawals, our numbers breathed. I finally ordered the alignment rack we had been putting off for a year. It arrived on a rainy Thursday. Talia danced around the bay in pink headphones. Ben helped me unbox the laser heads, reading the manual like it was sacred. Even at home, routine returned. Wednesday night used to be Nick's practice night. I'd drive him or Luca somewhere because their car was in the shop. Now, Wednesday was pancake night. Kids chose toppings. Ethan burned the first batch and laughed like he hadn't in weeks. Our home finally felt ours again. Nick didn't stop trying, of course. Publicly, he posted about growing up poor, about family loyalty, about brothers who forget where they came from. But I didn't see it as a challenge anymore. We blocked him on every channel that mattered, and the quiet was oxygen. Then came the first real test, Luca's birthday. Normally, a request for funds or sponsorship would arrive. This time, silence. Until a text from an unknown number, a photo of Luca with a sheet cake and a small card. Happy birthday, Luca. Practice makes progress. From Sophia and Ethan. No note, no return address, just a clean, simple gesture. Ethan smiled at me. We did right, he said. And we had. For the first time, boundaries weren't punishment. They were protection. Love wasn't measured by money or sacrifices made under duress. It was measured in presence, in consistency, in the steady work of showing up for the people who mattered. Even small victories mattered. We started inviting friends and neighbors into our lives more openly. Our neighbor Ruth brought soup when I worked late. Friday nights became movie nights in the shop. String lights hung over cars, popcorn in oil drain pans. Clean, loud, and ours. I looked at the family chat less and less. When my mother texted Lena, yes, Lena, not me, there was no manipulation, no guilt. She sat in a cafe for an hour with Mom. When she came home, she said, "Your mother misses you. She'll never admit it." I nodded. That was enough. A month later, I found myself at the park for a tournament. Luca's team was there. He broke into a grin and waved at me, small and unassuming. I waved back. Nothing more. No promises, no money, no intrusion into our lives. Just acknowledgement, kindness, and respect. It was enough. The first few weeks after the confrontation felt almost surreal. The silence from Nick, the absence of constant demands, the lack of guilt-tripping calls. It was as if a storm had passed and left everything quiet, but not empty. For the first time in years, the air felt ours to breathe. At the shop, something shifted. Without the weekly emergencies draining both energy and money, I could finally focus on running Evans Auto the way I wanted. The alignment rack we'd postponed for so long arrived on a rainy Thursday. Talia danced around the bays in her pink headphones while Ben helped me unbox the laser heads, reading the manual like a sacred text. I corrected him gently. new tool, not toy. But my smile betrayed the thrill I felt. At home, life settled into rhythms we hadn't had in years. Wednesday nights, once the patchwork of Nick's practices, became pancake nights. Toppings piled high, laughter spilling over burned batter, and Ethan's soft chuckle filling the kitchen. We were building a new kind of home, one free from constant intrusion, one defined by presence, not obligation. Even my relationship with my parents began to shift slowly. They still tried to guilt me, to weave their old patterns into new conversations. Mom's voice would appear in Lena's messages, polite and careful, but she was learning, through absence and boundaries, that Sophia Evans was no longer the default bank or mediator. And I felt something strange, relief. For the first time, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I was walking on my own terms. Then came the unexpected small victories. One Saturday, a customer came in with a beat-up Corolla, a Lucas sticker on the bumper. "Nick told me to tell you hi," she said, laughing. "Said you take care of the whole family." I smiled. "We take care of everyone the same," I said, giving her a fair price and sending her on her way. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it was proof that the lines I'd drawn didn't mean cruelty. They meant fairness. The first big test of our new reality was Luca's birthday. Normally, I would have been asked to sponsor a party, to fund some team extravaganza, to absorb 1,000 small indignities disguised as favors. This time, there was silence. And then, a text from an unknown number. A photo of Luca with a sheet cake, candles burned down to stubs, and a small card that simply read, "Happy birthday, Luca. Practice makes progress." From Sophia and Ethan. No note to Nick, no expectation, just a clean, kind gesture. I showed Ethan. He nodded, eyes soft. "We did right," he said. And we had. For the first time, boundaries weren't punishment. They were protection. Love wasn't measured in how much money we spent or how many sacrifices we made under pressure. It was measured in presence, consistency, and in the quiet work of showing up for the people we chose. The rhythm of ordinary life began to feel luxurious. Saturday mornings at the shop became lessons for Ben and Talia. Ben learned to check tire pressures and reset TPMS lights. Talia sat at the little desk by the window, making invoices with crayons for imaginary customers. Their laughter was proof that life didn't have to be complicated by the toxicity of others. Even the neighborhood began to feel warmer. Ruth, our neighbor, brought soup when I worked late. Friday nights became movie nights in the shop. String lights hung over the bays, popcorn in oil drain pans lined with foil. For the first time in years, I didn't brace for my phone to buzz with a new family crisis. The only sound was the laughter of kids, the clink of tools, the quiet of people who mattered. Occasionally, I thought of Nick, posting online, crafting his narrative of betrayal, but I didn't engage. His words no longer had power here. Our quiet, steady life had replaced the drama with meaning. The final test came one spring Saturday at the park. Luca's team was there. He jogged to the sideline during a break, glanced around, and saw me. A small grin, a timid wave. I tapped my chest twice. That was it. No promises, no conversation, no interference. Just acknowledgement, just respect. It was enough. And for me, for Ethan, for Ben and Talia, it was everything. We were still rebuilding, still healing, but the lessons were clear. Boundaries were not revenge. They were a blueprint for dignity. Love wasn't about paying the price for someone else's pride. It was about nurturing the people who mattered most, without losing yourself. I often think about the quiet nights, sitting in our kitchen with the phone face down, listening to the hum of the heater, the soft breathing of the kids. That's when I learned the truth. I could protect my family without sacrificing my soul. I could be firm without being cruel. I could love without being taken for granted. The past, with its manipulations and expectations, still existed, but it no longer dictated our present. We were free to define family on our terms, and it was stronger than I had ever imagined. Spring had a way of making everything feel possible. The mornings smelled of fresh coffee and damp earth. The kids' laughter echoed through the house and the shop in a rhythm that was ours, uninterrupted by old family dramas or manipulative texts. I watched Sophia's life, our life, settle into something almost magical in its ordinary moments. Ethan had started a small routine of early morning jogs with the kids, a tradition that grew into pancake breakfasts afterward. Saturdays were fully ours: movie nights, project cars in the shop, and walks in the park. Our life was rich not because of extravagance, but because of presence. Even at the shop, everything had changed. Freed from constant emergencies and last-minute financial crises, I had the space to improve operations. Talia and Ben learned alongside me. Sometimes messy, sometimes hilarious, but the joy in watching them understand, succeed, and stumble safely was unmatched. I realized teaching them responsibility was far more meaningful than paying for someone else's irresponsibility. Mom tried at first to slip back into old patterns, gentle reminders and subtle guilt. "Sophia, you know it's family," she'd say. But we had grown stronger than her nudges. Lena, my anchor, reminded me quietly, boundaries weren't permanent punishments, but guidelines for respect. And slowly, even Mom learned to respect them. Nick's attempts at interference dwindled. Public posts, veiled insults, and pleas for attention no longer found me. I didn't block the world entirely, but I blocked the toxicity. Life moved forward, unburdened by someone else's pride or insecurity. Then came moments that cemented the changes we had made. A neighbor stopped by with a gift for Talia, a handmade doll. Ben showed her the tiny Lego engine he had built for practice. Friends and neighbors became extensions of our family, invited freely and without expectation. Our home was no longer a battleground. It was a sanctuary. One afternoon, Luca's team had another match. Ethan and I attended quietly, watching from a distance. The moment came. Luca spotted me, broke into a grin, and waved. I tapped my chest twice. He caught my eye. No words exchanged. No expectations. Just acknowledgement. Just respect. That silent, small connection was worth more than any payment, any favor, or any compromise I had ever made. I realized then that true family was not about forced obligations, nor measured generosity. It was about choice. Showing up, day after day, in the messy, imperfect, and sometimes mundane ways that mattered most. Love was not a ledger. It was the steady presence that made life feel secure. And so, we built new traditions. Wednesday pancake nights remained, complete with burnt edges and laughter. Saturday mornings at the shop became workshops for the kids. Friday nights, movies in the bays, string lights twinkling above, popcorn in oil drain pans. Every ritual reaffirmed that we could shape our own story. 2 months later, I checked the shop account, and for the first time in years, we were ahead. Not wealthy, not untouchable, but free from the weight of others' expectations. The feeling was indescribable, a quiet kind of triumph. We had not won a battle. We had reclaimed our lives. Sophia Evans, 36, wife to Ethan, mother to Ben and Talia, owner of a small but thriving auto shop. She was no longer the family's default bank, the mediator, the silent problem solver who carried burdens not hers to bear. She was a woman who knew her worth, who protected her family, and who loved without being exploited. Looking back, it was the small gestures that mattered most. The quiet wave, the burnt pancakes, the laughter spilling over the shop floor. Boundaries had brought clarity. Consistency had brought peace. Love, patient and unshakable, had brought home. We were not perfect. We were not untouched by the past. But we were free. And that freedom, that peace, that reclamation of life, it was ours, and it was beautiful.